Title: He Did the Unthinkable. Then Walked Free. The Issei Sagawa Case. Disclaimer: this documentary is based on real events, court records, and verified reports. Some elements are reconstructed for narrative clarity. Viewer discretion is advised. In 1981, a man committed one of the most disturbing crimes in modern history. He did not try to hide it. He did not deny it. He did not run. He confessed, in detail. There was no question about what he had done. No missing evidence. No uncertainty. No mystery. And yet, he was set free. Not after years in prison. Not after a long trial, but because the system itself failed to hold him. This is the story of Issei Sagawa. A life of silence. At first glance, there was nothing remarkable about him. He was small in stature, quiet, withdrawn, the kind of person people overlook without even realizing it. Born into a wealthy family in Japan, Sagawa grew up with privilege, but not confidence. From an early age, he felt disconnected, physically weaker than those around him, socially isolated, emotionally distant. He struggled to form relationships, struggled to fit into the world, and over time, that isolation began to transform into something darker. The beginning of an obsession. Long before Paris, long before the crime, there was a thought, a fixation, one that he would later describe in chilling detail. It wasn't anger, it wasn't revenge, it wasn't even driven by hatred. It was desire, a desire to possess another human being completely, not emotionally, not romantically, but physically, to consume, to absorb, to make someone a part of himself. For years it remained a fantasy, a secret he never shared, a thought he carried alone. But unlike most thoughts, this one didn't fade. It grew stronger, more detailed, more real, until eventually, it became something he could no longer ignore. Paris. A new beginning. In the early 1980s, Sagawa moved to Paris, a city known for culture, education, and opportunity. He enrolled at the Sorbonne to study literature. On the surface, it looked like a fresh start, a chance to reinvent himself, a chance to leave the past behind. But the truth was, he didn't leave anything behind. He brought it with him. The target. Her name was Renée Hartevelt, a Dutch student. Confident, intelligent, outgoing. Everything Sagawa believed he was not. Where he felt invisible, she stood out. Where he felt weak, she appeared strong. To him, she represented something unattainable, something complete. And over time, she became the focus of his attention. Not in a way that raised suspicion, not in a way that seemed dangerous, but in a way that, to him, felt inevitable. The invitation. The plan began with something simple. An invitation. He asked her to come to his apartment. He told her he needed help with a translation assignment. It sounded normal, routine, harmless, and she agreed. There were no warning signs, no indication that anything was wrong. Just a classmate helping another. A normal day. A normal decision. One that would lead directly into something unimaginable. The moment. Everything changed inside the apartment. Everything appeared ordinary. Books scattered across the table, papers prepared for review. She sat down, focused on the work, her back turned, and in that moment, Sagawa moved. What happened next was sudden. There was no struggle, no time to react, no chance to escape. In an instant, the situation changed completely, and the silence that followed would mark the beginning of something far more disturbing than the act itself. What followed? Most crimes are driven by impulse, panic, fear, desperation. This was not one of them. What followed was deliberate, controlled, planned long before that day. Sagawa did not behave like someone who had made a mistake. He behaved like someone fulfilling a vision, a fantasy that had been forming for years. Later, he would describe the experience, calmly, without hesitation, without remorse. And it was those descriptions that would leave investigators deeply disturbed. Because this was not confusion. It was intention. The attempt to dispose. Days passed, and eventually, reality began to close in. He needed to remove what remained. He placed the evidence into suitcases, waited for the right moment, and chose a location where he believed he would not be seen. A quiet area in Paris, secluded enough to avoid attention, or so he thought, because this is where everything began to fall apart. Discovery. As he attempted to dispose of the suitcases, something unexpected happened. People noticed there was something unusual, something that didn't belong. Authorities were called, and within a short time, Sagawa was arrested. He did not resist. He did not deny anything, because for him, there was nothing to deny. The confession. When investigators questioned him, they expected hesitation, confusion, maybe even deception. What they received instead was something entirely different. He confessed, fully, clearly, in detail. There was no attempt to shift blame, no attempt to minimize what he had done. He explained everything, step by step, and with every word, the case became more disturbing, because it wasn't just the crime, it was the mindset behind it. The court case. With a full confession and clear evidence, the outcome seemed obvious. This was not a complicated case. This was not a mystery. Justice, it appeared, would be straightforward, but that assumption would prove to be completely wrong, because the legal system introduced a factor that would change everything. The decision. Sagawa was declared legally insane, which meant he could not be held responsible in the same way. Instead of prison, he was sent to a psychiatric institution. At that point, it still seemed like some form of accountability existed. But that wasn't the end, because what happened next was something no one expected. The transfer authorities decided to send him back to Japan, where he would continue treatment. But once he arrived, the situation changed. Legal complications began to surface, jurisdiction issues, procedural gaps, and slowly, the case began to collapse. Released eventually, charges were dropped. Not because the crime didn't happen, not because there was doubt, but because the legal system could no longer proceed. And just like that, Sagawa was released. A man who had confessed in full detail walked free. Public reaction. The reaction was immediate. Shock, confusion, anger. How could something like this happen? How could someone admit to such a crime and face no real consequence? The case spread across media. People struggled to understand it. Not just the crime, but the outcome. Life after. In the years that followed, Sagawa did something even more unsettling. He spoke publicly, gave interviews, wrote books, described the crime in detail, and remained a free man, living among society, not hidden, not imprisoned, but visible. The question that remains. This case is not remembered only because of what happened. It is remembered because of what didn't happen. There was no resolution, no clear justice, no closure, only a question that continues to disturb those who learn about it. Ending. He confessed. The evidence was undeniable. The outcome should have been certain. And yet, he walked free. Not because he escaped, not because he was proven innocent, but because the system failed to hold him accountable. And that is what makes this case one of the most unsettling in modern history.